left to right. Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
What's going on, guys? What's happening? It is Deibs, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Welcome to Party on Broad. The Party on Broad podcast can be found on iTunes, on Spotify. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button below. Joining us today is Rob Langi from the Madness podcast. You know, Rob and Jessica Town do an awesome job. Follow Rob on Twitter at Philly_Madness. What's going on, Rob?
Man, I'm trying to not go stir crazy, being basically isolated here in South Jersey. Actually, it was funny. My wife was like today, she's like, do you want to go food shopping? I was like, I almost do because I want to get the hell out of the house. But she won the battle. I stayed home with the kids. But, you know, we were talking before we came on, man, and not having sports is I'm watching a Sixers-Cavaliers game from November right now. Like, that's where we're at with this non-sports watching. So it's a struggle, but I know we're all trying to get through it in our own way.
I've resorted to watching sports movies.
Yes.
So recently I just got done watching Invincible, and my wife comes home from work, and it's at the very end when he's like pointing up to his friends in the stadium, and I'm just crying, and my wife comes home like, what are you doing?
No way. See, I wish I could do that, but I have two 4-year-olds, so they've taken over. So Disney Plus has probably been on, I'd say, average of 11 hours a day. And what am I getting? I'm getting a couple High School Musicals. There's these they're in the musicals right now. So I'm like Zombies, High School Musical, Descendants. And actually, I was talking about it on the Madness last week. Teen Beach Movie. Worst movie of all time. When your daughter gets older, I'm telling you, if she ever says, I want to watch Teen Beach Movie, tell her they deleted it from forever because it's awful. Like, don't do that to yourself, man.
Yeah, luckily I have a job where I can be flexible enough to like work from home. And I've been spending a ton of time with my 7-month-old. And Disney Plus, man, I've literally exhausted everything out of Disney Plus, man. I need more now.
I know. It's unbelievable. I like it because some of the shows that are on there, like stuff I watched when I was young, and I'm like, okay, I can rock old Boy Meets World for a couple hours and enjoy myself. You know, it's good times.
There's only so much Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and Avengers movies you can watch. Like I've exhausted all of them. And now I'm like, just released all of the Clone Wars. Just like, can Netflix or Disney Plus just like throw us a bone here and just give us everything?
It's unbelievable what life comes to when there are no sports on television. Like, I'm dying for new series. Like, I think I'm watching 4 series simultaneously right now because I just need to make sure I'm always watching something, and I could change it up every night if I have to. Started that Tigerland last night. Oh, man, what a train wreck that show is.
Is it good? Yeah, I've been hearing nothing about, like, everything on my timeline on Twitter is about this Tiger King show.
Yeah, Tiger King. I call it Tigerland. But I'm telling you right now, the best way it was put to me was by my cousin before I watched. He said, it is the strangest train wreck you'll ever watch. But you have to just appreciate that this is happening in the world you live in right now. And you won't be able to stop watching. And he wasn't kidding. Like, I was locked in last night, like trying to like judge these people. I said, no, you can't. You just gotta let this thing go. You know, it's just one of those things. So
it's on the
that's where we're at, man. That's why it's good we have this podcast so we can actually talk sports even when they're not happening.
This has been kind of my therapy away from home a little bit. You know, it's keeping me sane. We've been watching Ozark. My wife and I binged the first 2 seasons of Ozark in a week. We loved it, and we just started season 3.
That's our goal tonight is to get the first episode of season 3 in the night, me and my wife. That's what she said. She's like, are you going to be all night? Because I kind of want to watch an episode of Ozark. I said, we'll have time. Don't you worry.
Awesome. All right. So on tap for today, we were talking basketball. I thought it'd be fun to take a break from the Eagles free agency, the Eagles and the NFL draft. So we're going to talk some Sixers basketball. We're going to go count down 10 through 1 of our top Sixers moments of the season. You ready to do this, man?
I am pumped for this, man. This was fun to go back and do so that even though if you ask most Sixers fans, they're going to tell you it's been the worst season ever. There have been some good moments mixed in there, okay? So focus. Let's focus on some positives here.
Yeah, all right. Why don't you lead us off with your number 10, man?
All right, my number 10, I'm going to lead you off with the opening game of the season, right? It was a new-look Sixers. This was the time the year was coming in, and what do? They get the Celtics, who have been the thorn in their side, all 5 starters go for double figures. My one moment was when Jay Rich picked up an offensive foul and kind of pumped his fist in the air. And it was close, I remember, at halftime, and the Sixers kind of opened it up and ended up winning by like 14. But it was the moment where you said, oh, this is going to be a great year.
Yeah, man.
That didn't necessarily follow, but that moment, we were there. We were all fired up, ready to go to the finals.
So much hype. My number 10, and I'm going back to actually before the regular season started, October 15th, I'm going Norvell Pell having 5 blocks versus the Pistons during that preseason game. If anyone knows me on Twitter, you know that I'm one of Norvell Pell's biggest fans. You follow me on the Blue Route. I'm just fully in love with Norvell Pell. I don't normally freak out, man, while watching a basketball game, but I'm normally pretty composed. But when Norvell Pell did the shimmy and blocked Christian Wood, I think like back-to-back times, and you see the bench just erupt. Joel Embiid, Jay Rich, they're all going crazy, man. That was one of my, just most memorable moments of the season, just knowing that Norvell Pell has arrived. And I was screaming for him to play all year last year, especially in that second half, and watching him finally like arrive and everyone gets so excited about Norvell Pell. That was just an epic moment, man.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting to see some of these young guys who we've heard about down there with the what is it, the G League now, right? Yep. Down there with the Blue Coats, start to kind of show themselves a little bit, and guys like that, and guys like Shake Milton, that you've heard about for this time, starting to make moves. And that Norvell Pell's had a couple of those moments this season where you just go, I like this kid's swagger, man. I just like everything about him.
He's just a lightning rod, man. His personality, he's just very funny, fun to be around. I covered him with the Blue Coats last year, and just that block when he does the to me, that hands down the most used GIF, whatever, however you pronounce it. Yeah. That I used it all year long, and I just love that play. What's your number 9, man?
All right, number 9. The way I headline this: Sixers dominate Timberwolves on court and in the fighting ring. This was the the Sixers dominated the game, but it was so secondary to the fight heard around the NBA league. Cat, Karl Anthony Towns, Joel Embiid go at it. And yeah, it was good and everything, but what I remember was the ultimate sleeper hold that made Karl Anthony Towns tap out from Ben Simmons, and Ben Simmons walks away with not a technical, not a fine, nothing. And the other guys are suspended 2 games. We joked about it. With all the good moments seem to be bad. Honestly, it was that moment where things started to trend like with this roller coaster that this team's put us on. It was right then because things were going really well at that point.
Yeah, man.
But it was so much fun to watch Joel. And then I remember Joel going to the sideline and Mike Scott being up there, and they were like shadow boxing. I was like, man, this at that point, I love the team. I was like, this is great. Look at the camaraderie. Everything is wonderful.
I'll just like move forward. That's my number 7, man. The Joel Embiid Cat Town fight. That was my number 7 because going into that game, any game between Towns and Embiid just has so much unbelievable hype and anticipation. And watching Ben Simmons give Towns that sleeper hold, man, just such a memorable moment. And I remember Twitter just going absolutely freaking nuts. And
the broad bully shirts were everywhere at that point.
And just like to your credit, man, can you imagine the Sixers were 5-0 to start the season? Like, do you remember at all what like that feeling of excitement and hope was like? Do you? It feels like an eternity ago.
I do because of my number 8, but we'll get to that in a minute. But it's unbelievable. It was the first time they were 5-0 since the 2001 team, and getting the shades of the Iverson step over, and you're like, oh my God, this team really has and then the bully ball after that fight. Yeah, that's right. They're bully balling everybody. And my God, did it just like, I don't even know. I'm trying to figure out. I literally go back to that fight every time as the moment that we were at our peak.
Yep.
And then everything kind of fade. And then every time there seemed to be another peak coming, they would just get crushed again.
Totally.
And how we got to the point where when the season went on suspension here, they were sitting tied at the 5 seed. I guess they were sitting in the 6th slot, right behind Indiana. But it's just like, where the hell did everything go wrong? Unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. My number 9, I'm going back again. You kind of stole mine, but it's okay. To that regular season opening game versus Boston. And more specifically, I'm talking about Matisse Thybulle blocking Kemba Walker. And why this moment was so memorable was because Matisse put together one of the best preseasons since I can remember. I don't know if you remember, like, he just had his blocks and steals numbers were absolutely ridiculous. He was averaging like 4 steals a game and like 2 blocks a game in like less than 20 minutes. It was absolutely absurd. And just watching Matisse block Kemba Walker, I think Kemba did like Matisse fought over the screen, and Matisse, denied his chance at shooting a 3, and then Matisse kind of chased him down and blocked it. And it was just such an epic moment that I've always been a Matisse guy. And that was the moment Matisse kind of arrived. He kind of hit the rookie wall. He has been. But that was a great moment.
Well, it's funny because Jess, my co-host on The Madness, will tell you the night that the Sixers drafted Matisse, I had got my hopes crushed. I'm a big North Carolina fan.
Okay. So
Cameron Johnson was my guy. So when he went super early that night, it probably wouldn't have mattered who the Sixers drafted. I was going to be depressed. And then I was a big Carson Edwards guy. I thought, oh, man, this guy can shoot. And all I'm thinking is the Sixers need shooters. The Sixers need shooters over and over again. So when they draft him, I'm like, what the hell? I don't even know what's going on. So literally Jess has taken every moment she could this year to say, hey, remember the night of the draft when you were unhappy with Matisse? I'm like, she twists the damn truth on me all the time. It wasn't that I was unhappy with him. It was just I was so dead set on Cameron Johnson that when he disappeared off the board so early, it ruined my night. But I'm happy with Matisse. But I agree with you. I think he's hit a little bit of a rookie wall, but you could see where his defensive athleticism is going to get him in this league. And he has shot better than a lot of people thought he would.
Absolutely. I think the sky's the limit for that kid. No matter what, like when he's in the game, he impacts the game positively. I can't say enough. I was on. We're getting like a little thunder or something going on here. But I've always been on the Matisse train, man. I love that guy.
I love him and Tobias too. Their Twitter videos are pure epic. I was really upset when Bobby and Toby was ending, but seeing that Toby and Tease have kind of created their own show, phenomenal for me. I love every minute of it.
Absolutely. Let's move on to number 8, man. What's your number 8?
All right, so number 8 is when the Sixers moved to 5-0. I can remember the night very specifically because the Sixers are in Portland. They go down by 21 in the third quarter. I was watching the game in bed. They go down by 21, and I go, well, they weren't going to win all 82, and I roll over and go to sleep. Only to wake up the next morning to see Furkan Korkmaz blasting a buzzer beater to beat Portland to move the team to 5-0. And, it was one of these things where when it comes to Korkmaz, I was never a fan.
Right.
But, there was, listen, I told you before the show, and I get blasted for this. I'm a Brett Brown guy. And Brett Brown said he was trying to create a bomber with him or whatever. And I buy into what I did buy into everything Brett Brown said at the beginning of the year. So to see him hit it, I was like, okay, maybe this is the guy. And he had shown flashes throughout the season, but that moment to see they go to him on an inbound play when no one's expecting him to get the ball, to me, it was a great moment because I thought it was a great play call. And obviously to see Furkan hit the shot and see the team go to 5-0. So I was very pleased with that moment.
I'm in the same boat, man. I've never been a Furkan guy. I've been called out on it many times on Twitter and on this podcast, and I've been proven wrong over and over and over again. That doesn't mean I want him starting. That doesn't mean I want him playing more than 20 minutes a game. And, everything depends on matchups. I think Shake Milton is the best fit there. And pretty much all the matchups in those playoffs start Shake. But, Furkan has proven me wrong, man. He has absolutely played well beyond my expectations this season.
Yeah, and that's really all you can add. I mean, look, you could tell, to me, he's the perfect spark plug off of a bench, come in and hit. you saw what happened when they put him in the starting lineup. It's amazing to me how well he shoots at home versus on the road. I've never seen such a difference. But then again, look at the Sixers as a team.
Yeah, totally.
Everything changes. I've never seen anything like it in all my life. So who knows? But where are you going with number 8?
Number 8, I'm going to March 1st, the Shake Milton game versus the LA Clippers. Man, this wasn't even a win, but man, this game was in LA. I remember contemplating if I was going to watch this because I don't think Ben or Joel even played in this game.
Nope.
And you know, the Sixers showed a ton of heart. They showed a ton of hustle. They showed a ton of fight. And that's really something you didn't see much out of the Sixers this season. Jay Rich left early, I think, in that first quarter. So the team was just, shut down completely. And what do you know? Shake Milton breaks an NBA record, 13 straight three-pointers, 39 points. It was one of the most fun first halves by far of the regular season. The Sixers couldn't miss. Shake Milton had 26 points in the first half. He shot 10 of 11 from the field. And I remember one of the ESPN reporters admittedly said it publicly. I had no idea who Shake Milton was. And it was just one of the most hilarious moments. In a season of so many lows, way more lows than highs this season.
Oh, yeah.
Shake Milton is that spark plug. Shake Milton is that source of hope that maybe they found a backup point guard. Maybe they found a playmaker that can fit next to Ben and Joel.
Mm-hmm.
Shake, man.
Yeah, and listen, that you're moving me right into my number 7 because that was my number 7. Was his 39-point night, national TV, no Joe, no Ben. I was out. I had to go out with my wife and my kids. I didn't even watch. And I remember we're sitting down. We went to a diner, and I looked over. It was the second quarter, and I'm like, "Oh my God, the Sixers are winning!" And then I'm like, "Wait a minute, they have 70 points in the second quarter." Shake stats, and I went, "We got to get home." I said, "We got to get home right now. I have to get home because I didn't want to go watch this game." And I got home, and that was a moment where I said, "This team can still do good things. This team can still win a couple playoff series and be a contender when they get everybody back healthy." It was only 2 games later. They lose to Golden State, and you're going, and then they lose a game to Cleveland later on. You go, oh, Jesus. But
it's a lot of that.
That moment against the Clippers where I said they beat this team. They beat, you know what I mean? The Clippers should have been pissed. They just beat the Clippers a couple weeks ago. And Shake is a breath of fresh air. It's a guy that they've developed, which a lot of people have said that the Sixers really don't develop guys well. Well, here's a guy that's been in their system, and you credit the blue coats and the coaches there. You credit the coaches with the Sixers. Shake's a player in this league. Now, is he a bench player? Probably, I would say, but he's still a player in the league.
And Brett Brown gets shit on because they're like, well, he didn't play him enough. This guy, Brett Brown did play Shake Milton. He got hurt, and he was out for a while. So it's not like Shake Milton was one of the first guys off the bench to start the year. And major credit to Brett Brown, Connor Johnson, the pick and roll system. That's a guy that really thrived with the ball in his hands. And I was shocked how good he is without the ball because his ability to cut to the basket, create his own shot, stretch the court. This guy kind of does it all. Exactly what the Sixers need. And when you think about Shake Milton, the first thing I think of, 3 years, $5.5 million. That's how much they're going to spend for 3 more years of Shake Milton. If Elton Brand has made a lot of bad moves, but that's number 1. That's got to be one of the top of Elton Brand's moves.
I mean, it was a great move that they saw something in this kid, and he, to me, is that perfect scoring option off the bench. He can get to the basket. He can knock down the 3. He can create his own shot. Really, he's what I was upset that the Sixers didn't go out and get for their starting lineup. Guys a little bit more talented than a Shake Milton. Mm-hmm. Listen, hindsight's always 20/20, but I believe the biggest problem with this team is they said we're playing bully ball, but then forgot, oh, wait, we need guys that can shoot around these guys. And I mean straight shoot, not Tobias Harris, streaky shooter. I mean guys that are like a J.J. Redick. That's why I wanted Luke Kennard in the worst way. Mm-hmm. I wanted to trade for a guy like a Luke Kennard. That's who they need around a Ben and a Joe and that. And it's frustrating that they didn't. But you're right. To have a guy like Shake in the fold for 3 years with your core, and now you got to build around it, and you got to make some things work. see what happens.
Yeah, I've been already starting to do some scouting reports on the NBA draft. Sixers targets, and you think of that backup point guard position. I've already started several, and could it be Shake? Like, could that? I mean, I think that could be his role moving forward, and that's only a good thing. In a season of really bad shit, they finally got something there, so that could be something good, positive. If the season is canceled, that they move forward. So I already did my number 7. So I guess we moved to number 6, right?
All right, yeah, we'll move to number 6.
All right, what's your number 6?
All right, so from December 7th to December 13th, the Sixers went on a 5-game win streak. Okay, and this whole win streak was big. Here's why. First of all, they started it with a 47-point win. Yes, they were playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, but when you were in the NBA and you win a game by 47 points, that's something to write home about. Like, that's impressive. But after that, they beat Toronto. Revenge for last year. All right, they got their revenge. They beat Denver. Revenge for earlier in the year when they got screwed when they call an offensive foul on Joel Embiid when it's clear that a-hole out there is holding his jersey. Okay. Then they knock off JJ in his return, okay, with the Pelicans, and then they go to Boston. They'd already beat them twice, and now they go out to Boston, and they beat them at the Garden to end that 5-game win. And once again, here's one of those times, right? I'm like, oh, man, here we go. Everything's good. They did follow this up with like a 4-game losing streak. But for those 5 games, I was really impressed, man. I was ready to go. And one of those wins was on the road, which was very rare to happen this year. So
that is 100% the trend here. That when we go back and look at all the highlights of this season, man, everything we see is followed with some sort of like losing streak, road losing streak, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
It reminds me of the like late 90s, early 2000 Flyers. Everything was always this. There was never just, hey, get up here and stay. It was just this roller coaster to the point where they would limp in the playoffs and you'd say, well, this is going to be a first-round exit. And that's where we were starting to get to with the Sixers. Like, I think a lot of us believed that they could and probably still would win a first-round series, but it was going to be another second-round exit. Like, even as a 6 seed, I thought that they could beat a Boston in the playoffs. I just thought in a 7-game series that they would be able to win 4 before Boston would. But regardless, it's a damn roller coaster, man. It's like getting me motion sickness watching them.
All right, my number 6. I'm going Furkan Korkmaz lights it up before the All-Star break. I go straight to the 34 points versus Memphis, 31 points versus Chicago. Then a dud, a 0-point performance versus the Clippers. We're not going to talk about that. I just want to talk about those 2 games. The Memphis game, the Chicago game. He shot 13 of 20 from 3-point range. He was a plus 29 in those 2 games on the court. Dude, his shot was just completely wet during those 2 games. And I go also straight to that dunk he had versus Chicago.
Literally thinking about.
Man, just there was 4 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter, and he just does this like emphatic. He takes the handoff from Tobias Harris and just an emphatic one-handed dunk. And it was just such an epic moment for Furkan Korkmaz. And just an aside, I do a lot of like highlight reels for the TPL YouTube channel. And I made a Furkan Korkmaz highlight reel, pre-All-Star break highlight reel. And it just went viral overseas and in Turkey. And when you look up our YouTube analytics, you can see where all the hits are coming from. It was all overseas. It hit like 70,000 views within like 2 days. And my phone went off straight buzzing just by comments and all that shit for 2 straight days. It was just so memorable. It was wild.
And like we said, when they re-signed Furkan, I ripped the move. I was like, why the hell is this guy back? He does nothing. He doesn't even shoot well enough. And man, once again, there's another guy on a team that apparently can't develop anybody who has developed, into at least a serviceable rotational guy, 3-point shooter coming off the bench to give you offense. Now, he needs to work on doing that on the road as much as he's done it at home.
Yeah.
But, another guy that has been developed here in Philadelphia.
And when I think of Furkan, like I was in the same boat, dude. I didn't want any bit of Furkan Korkmaz coming back this season. And then fast forward like 5-6 months from now, I'm pissed off that he's not in the 3-point game, 3-point contest. Like that's how much just mental shift there's been with this guy.
It's unreal. It's unreal. I guess we having the focus on the positive in a season like this, he's been one of the bright spots. I mean, really, at the end of the day.
Kudos to Furkan. What's your number 5, man?
All right, number 5. Welcome back, Jimmy. Here it is, November 23rd. Welcome back, Mr. Butler. Mr. I don't want to play in Philadelphia. I don't want to play for bread or whatever the reasons might have been. Speaking of which, on an aside, I love how when he puts that out, everyone goes, see, it's all Brett's fault. And I went, yeah, and it was every other coach's fault this guy's ever had. He always has a problem with the coach. But I can remember this night I was actually out getting a 5-star dinner paid for me and my wife. We were in a couples fantasy league and had won 2 years in a row. So we went to a real expensive place for dinner. So I didn't really get to see the game, but I kept checking my phone. And I was like, they are up 30 points there. And I'm like watching this thing, and I got to see the end of the game just to see them just trounce them, to see Jason Richardson go all for 32. And it was like, once again, look, they even own the Heat this year. Things have changed, but in the moment, they own those damn Heat. So we were pumped up. We were fired up for that. And it was nice to see the Sixers kind of say, hey, Jim, even though it was very quickly changed, but we don't need you, Jim. And then, we all know what happened after that.
Yeah, man. Awesome moment. I remember Jay Rich going nuts in that second half. I think he was a big part of that third quarter run. I think they were up like 41 points at the time. But like another key part of that game that I remember is Ben Simmons just locking down Jimmy Butler. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just a typical Ben Simmons game where he only had probably like 15 points, but his defense was outstanding.
He was on Bentley, and we're just kind of reminiscing on the season because for all intents and purposes, it might be over. Ben was on his way. First of all, he was definitely, in my opinion, all NBA first team defense. But he was on his way. He should have been in the conversation if he didn't get hurt for Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, some of his defense this season, the way he and there was those stats that kind of popped up when he played against some of the best guys in the league and what their shooting percentage was when Ben was on them. What he does on a basketball court, the casual fan doesn't get, and that's why you get so much hate thrown his way. Because what he adds from a defensive element and from an athletic element and a passing element is almost second to none in this league when you put it all together.
Couldn't agree more, man. I'm a huge Ben guy, so couldn't agree more. My number 5, I'm going to February 24th. Joel Embiid's 49 points versus the Atlanta Hawks. This was we talk about a roller coaster type of season. Well, this is it. And we had 4 straight losses and then 4 straight wins. And there was a lot of bad ones. They had losses to the Hawks a week prior to this game. They had lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers before this game. Ben Simmons wasn't playing. So, it was just a really terrible time where you had no idea what to expect. Well, I guess if they were home, maybe. But MB just put the team on his back. 49 points, 14 boards, 17 of 24 from the floor. He had just a really sick putback slam in that fourth quarter. But if there was anything to take away from this game, the 49-point game, is that when Joel Embiid is having fun, the Sixers are legit unstoppable. And you saw it in this game. You saw him do some shimmies, some dancing. He was just having fun again. And when Joel Embiid is in that mental state, unbeatable, unstoppable. And a little side note of this game that was one of my favorites because I just love these little moments is when Joel Embiid is dribbling the ball to end the game with they're up 10 or something. And Kevin Huerter, I think, comes and steals the ball. And Joel Embiid just gives him the what the fuck face and gives him the finger.
Got fined for it too, but I remember the moment.
That was so funny.
You said it. And one of my frustrations with Embiid this year has been this trying not to have fun, right? Oh, no one wants me to have fun. No. Why do you care? Just go be you. I want to know who's in his ear telling him not to do that.
Right.
Because I don't believe the coaches would do that. I think the coaches are a little too standoffish sometimes with letting these guys do whatever they want to do. I don't think Elton Brand, who's in his ear telling him that, because you're 100% right. When he's goofing around, talking trash, that's when he's at his best. And my hope is in this little, time away from basketball, he gets that's who he has to be, the persona. He has to be that guy, because that's when he's at his best. And if he's not that, if he's sulking, if he's wearing his emotions on his sleeve with the pouty face and the walking up and down the court, it looks bad. And honestly, it frustrated me a lot this year with his attitude. Whether or not I agree with him being in the right position or not, you got to go out there and ball out every night and have fun. And the poutiness, it's such a baby thing that you see from this generation of athlete.
100%. 100%. What's your number 4, man?
All right, number 4. We had talked about the Sixers. I talked about the Sixers losing to the Clippers, but Ben's triple-double in the big win over the Clippers in the game before the All-Star break, where you're talking about Kawhi, okay, the freaking robot out there. You're talking Paul George. They were. I think the only guy missing in that game was Patrick Beverley. I don't believe Patrick Beverley played. But Ben Simmons was the best guy on the floor, and it wasn't even close that night. If I remember correctly, did Joel play in that game?
Man.
Joel played in that game. I don't think he did.
Sure.
Then came back for the All-Star game because he was battling something.
Correct. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Or no, you know what? Joel didn't play when they beat the Lakers. That's when Joel wasn't playing.
Okay.
This game, Joel was. But Ben single-handedly was, everyone said, oh, Ben could do it against the Nets or Ben could do it against the Cavs. He can never do it when he's got good competition. Well, here he is defending Kawhi Leonard and still getting a triple-double down the other end of the floor. And the Sixers, shockingly at home, got another huge win on the season, going into an All-Star break that made everybody feel great again. Here we go. We're back, baby.
Wasn't Al Horford? I think Al Horford had a great game too, or something.
Yeah. Everybody was fired up. We were ready to go. And then after the All-Star break, Ben's out basically for the year. That's
funny. Like when you think of like Al Horford, like starting to get him going. He gets going, then the All-Star break happens. He gets going, then the coronavirus happens. Like
that Detroit game with him and Joel on the floor together, just dominating a game. It was like, okay, they can do this, maybe they can work. And then literally that Detroit game, every quarter's more news broke. I can remember watching that game. At the end of the first quarter, you heard they were going to start playing their games with no fans. At the end of the second quarter, you heard the Thunder games getting delayed. At the end of the third quarter, you heard it's postponed, and Rudy Gobert has corona. And then by the end of the game, the season was suspended, and you were just going, this happened in 2 hours? Like, the whole thing changed in 2 hours. But, yeah, man, Al Horford he was a little snake bitten this year.
Totally. My number 4, I'm going back to November 20th. I can't even believe this is not in my top 3, but it's not, and that is Ben Simmons hitting his first career three-pointer versus the New York Knicks. This isn't even like a major win. In fact, I think the Sixers barely pulled this win off. It was kind of a close game, but Ben Simmons' first three-pointer also gave us one of the best Mark Zumoff calls of all time. Hold me back, fam. As much as I love Ben Simmons, that's how much I love Mark Zumoff, and I'll never forget that, man. It was just a great call. Hold me back, fam. I think I'm going to probably put that pretty soon in one of the intro for the Party on Broad. It's going to happen.
I got to tell you, I put that in as an honorable mention. And I think the main reason I didn't put him on my list is because it was the only one. I thought once that one went in, we were going to see more.
It's over.
And once again, I am not getting on the I hate Ben Simmons like a lot of people do because he doesn't shoot. But damn it, you're not making my top 10 when that was it. Like, I thought we were finally going to hit that mark because it looked so smooth.
Yeah.
So smooth. And they try and run it for him all the time, and he refuses to shoot it. Like, everyone always says, why is Ben standing in the corner? Like, what kind of offense is that? And I said, that's the offense where he's supposed to hit a three. He's not shooting it.
It's wild, man.
Mentioned for it, but it was a great moment. I agree with you.
Going back to the roller coaster season, this was in November, late November. The Sixers were 12-3 in a stretch and followed it with 3 wins in 10 games.
Yep. And that game, they were down almost 20 points in the third quarter. They were down about 17. Only reason I remember is because I live bet them. I went on DraftKings and I live bet them because they were at like plus 350 because it was like 3 minutes in the third quarter. I'm like, they're not losing to the Knicks. And they ended up winning, I think, by like 3. But I ended up hitting big on that bet. I was like all pumped up because they came back and won. But that's the only reason I remember that game. And I actually put that in my honorable mention because I hit on a live bet. And I most likely really needed it in November because I did not bet well in the NFL this year.
That's fantastic. All right, let's do top 3, man. Go ahead.
Top 3. So I'm going Christmas Day at number 3. I know that most people want to put this at 1. Personally, I had to put it at 3 because personally on Christmas Day, I was in bed with the stomach bug, feeling horrific. So yes, I got to watch the game, but no, I didn't personally get to enjoy it as much as everybody else. You know, I remember thinking, holy shit, they've hit 21 threes. I remember thinking, my God, they are sticking it to the best team in the East. They're golden. Things are great. But just because I had the stomach virus, I couldn't let it be like 2 or 1 on my list because I felt god-awful all day.
Yeah, it's my number 1, man. It's a Christmas Day miracle. The way my family works, man, we wake up early at like 6 a.m., we open presents, and then like once that like 11 o'clock, like noontime hits, it's drinking time. And I just remember like just enjoying celebrating this game with my family. Like you said, the Sixers could have missed from 3. Embiid had 31 points, 11 boards. They were up big at that half, like 69-48. And this game had it all, like Furkan going off, Tobias going off. No one could miss. And it was just, man, when you think of, I keep going back to this because I remember feeling so high. This was like the Sixers beating the Los Angeles Lakers in the 2001 finals, game 1. You felt so high after this win. Like the Sixers have arrived, and they followed that up with 3 straight losses, a blowout loss to the Dallas Mavericks, and a really bad loss to the Brooklyn Nets, man. It's just a microcosm of the entire season right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was almost like they were ready for that game. They had it all ready to go, firing on all cylinders, and then they just stopped playing again.
Yep. Yeah, that's my number 1.
Yeah, and you know, it was, like I said, if I was like you and I was sitting in front of the game and I was able to have a beer and I was able to feel on a high, I felt so terrible physically that there was just, you know, I was glad I was even able to watch the game, to be honest with you.
Yep.
All right, so I'll move on to number 2. And
I want to give you my number 3. I'll give you my number 3.
Probably like it is your show, so you should probably do your number 3 over there.
My number 3 is January 20th. Ben Simmons dominating the Brooklyn Nets. Man, this is hands down one of my favorite triple doubles of Ben Simmons' career. He had 34 points, 12 boards, 12 assists. But what stood out in this game was his ridiculous defense, man. He had 5 steals, 2 blocks, the team best 96 defensive rating. This was kind of like another stamp on Ben Simmons being just all defensive team, all first team defensive team in the NBA. And it was just a glimpse of how good Ben Simmons can be. When he's playing lights out on both ends of the court, man, it was his 5th straight game of 20-plus points or more. And it was just a really epic moment. It was just Ben Simmons carried the team for a long time. And this was like one of his best stretches of his career.
If I'm remembering that game, there was a defensive play in the fourth quarter where he had a guy on the baseline. And the aggressive, like you could tell by the way his body was moving, how aggressive he was on defense. And there wasn't a chance in hell this guy, who I forget who it was at the time, was getting by him. And he ended up dribbling the ball off his foot and going out of bounds. And I remember texting a group chat going, that's why Ben is the best player on this basketball team. Because of that right there. It was unbelievable. You're right. It was a great game for him. No doubt.
All right. Number 2. Go ahead, man.
All right. Number 2. Once again, I'm going out to dinner, but I'm thinking, well, there's no Embiid. LeBron's coming to town. The Lakers are the hottest team in the league. It's all right that I'm going to miss this game, you know. Everything will be fine. except for the fact that the Embiidless Sixers dominate, and I mean dominate the Lakers. Once again, Ben Simmons with King James standing right in front of him, his mentor, goes for 28, 10, and 8. I believe Tobias had a big night that night as well, shooting the ball. And another game where the final score probably looks a little closer than what it actually was. I mean, I remember like sitting at dinner and my wife yelling at him, I'm like, no, you don't understand. The Sixers are up like 28 points against the Lakers. Like, I have to beat this right now. So just another one of those wins against the best of the West, right? Like that was the weirdest thing about the Sixers this year. It was almost like when they played those teams, especially in their house, they weren't losing to them. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. And another one of those where they didn't just win a game. They dominated a game. And that to me was so impressive. That's why it had to be number 2 on my list.
It's a great one, man. The first thing I think of with that game is that's the night before Kobe Bryant died. And that was when LeBron passed Kobe in scoring, right?
Yeah.
So just craziness, man. I can't even comprehend all of that crap. But just a great Ben Simmons game, of course. There's the mystery of the Sixers is when they want to show up, they're one of the best teams in the NBA. And then, 95% of the time they're in cruise mode. But that 5%, they show you flashes that they could be a contender. And that's what makes you go freaking nuts, man.
It's unbelievable. It really is. We've said it how many times in this one episode. This season has been absolutely – I'm telling you, I don't know what's a bigger roller coaster of emotions, being a father to 4-year-old twins or watching the Sixers in 2019, 2020. It has been so up and down, and it doesn't happen that they're coexisting at the same time. So my emotions are all over the place throughout this season. That's why, look, I miss sports, but there's part of me that thought for my own sanity, the fact that the Sixers aren't playing might actually be a benefit to my mental health at this moment.
I mean, you're not wrong. So I fully agree with that statement. All right, I'm going to give you my number 2. We're on number 2, right?
Yep.
All right, my number 2, I'm going to December 13th. I'm going Joel Embiid saying F you to Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley versus the Boston Celtics. Joel Embiid getting called out, saying that he's good being good, but he doesn't want to be great. And Joel Embiid just had one of his best games versus the Celtics. 38 points, 13 boards, and a W in Boston, which is very rare. But Embiid had 16 points in that fourth quarter, and two of those epic plays of this season, in my opinion. The one was the fist pump. It was the Tiger Woods. He hits a 3 and does the fist pump. Yeah, so great, so great. And then the other one was the him blocking Daniel Theis. I can't never pronounce. Terrible with words, with names. But Daniel Theis, I think it is. He blocks him at the rim with like seconds remaining, and just hearing the Boston crowd just go silent was just so good, man. It was just one of those feel-good wins, awesome moment.
When you can quiet a Boston crowd, there is no better feeling. Like, I'll be very honest with you. I smirked and laughed a little bit when Tom Brady signed with the Buccaneers, thinking about how Boston was responding to that, like the moment that they found out. And that guy Cameron Magruder on Twitter, who does like all the fan reactions, they have him doing all the NFL teams through free agency. I was watching that earlier today, and it's got to be the exact feel. Like the air just dropping out of everyone in Boston. It brought such a joy to my soul to know that was happening.
Hate to see it.
There are a few people I hate more than Boston fans. Dallas fans might be the only one I could think of where I truly despise.
Raptors fans, Miami fans, Celtics fans, they're all lumped together for me.
Yeah. Miami fans, to me, I don't even pay any attention to them because they don't care. Like, they literally are there because, why not? Like, I can remember in the NBA Finals them leaving a game and then trying to rush back in after Ray Allen hit an unbelievable 3. Like, I can remember you all leaving a 3-point game because you were pissed off. Like, seriously. Like, come on.
All right, what's your number one, dude?
All right, my number one is a microcosm of the whole season. And it's something that was so amazing, but it also got to a point where I couldn't even enjoy it anymore by the end of this thing. 29-2 at home.
Yep.
They lost 2 games at home, and it was unbelievable. Like, their basketball at home, like the close games, the routes, they had a little bit of everything at home. You would have thought this team was flying high to the number 1 seed. And that was all great, and that's why it's number 1, because it was an unbelievable feat to see them be that dominant. I thought it was a testimony to the fans of this town that go to the games, you know, that made it that type of place, that made these guys want to play their best. Excuse me. We held them accountable. We booed them when they needed to be booed. We cheered them when they needed to be cheered. We even got Joel Embiid to tell us to shut the hell up. So it was a testament. But literally by the end of this thing, they would win a game at home, and I'd watch it, and I would text the group and be like, won a game at home. Shame they can't do it on the road, and we're the 6th friggin' seed right now. Like, you couldn't even enjoy it, but it doesn't take away from it being a really, really impressive feat that most likely they were going to lose at most 5 games at home this year. I don't know how many more they would have lost, but just judging by the way they played at home, I couldn't see it. So to me, that's the number one thing that I'll take away from the season: how dominant the Wells Fargo Center, the home court advantage became in Wells Fargo Center.
And I really think that's Exhibit A of why Brett Brown could be fired this season. I think they're moving on probably regardless. The only way Brett Brown stays is if the Sixers make the finals, win a championship. That's it. So Brett Brown is literally praying to the basketball gods right now that the NBA, resumes, because I think the writing is on the wall. The end of Brett Brown is coming pretty soon. And when you look at the way they play on the road, it just the amount of threes, the poor shooting, they're a terrible shooting team on the road. It's just such a mystery. And all I can do here, and I'm a Brett Brown guy, is I point my finger right at Brett Brown. What about you?
Well, it gets to a point where you have to, right? Because the talent, look, I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't think this roster was constructed to be consistently successful in this NBA. And what I mean by that is they wanted to play bully ball and be big, but they needed shooters, and they never got straight shooters. And I don't mean streaky Tobias Harris type shooters. I mean, listen, JJ Redick takes more money to go on. I'm not even going to say that was a bad move allowing that to happen. I always thought that came out of left field. Now, JJ has had some interesting things to say on his podcast that basically Elton told him you're a last ditch signing. If that's the case, no. Like, no. Just no. But yeah, listen, even if it is not on Brett, at some point, and you've seen this happen all over sports, the voice in the room has to change. You saw it with Andy Reid, right? Andy Reid was one of the best coaches in Eagles history. But after 15 years, they probably waited 2 years too long, to be honest with you. But sometimes the voice has to change. I will continue, and I will live off this forever, whether he gets another coaching job or not. I believe Brett Brown's a good basketball mind. Yep. I believe Brett Brown's a good basketball coach. I think he tries to be Gabe Kapler-ish in a sense, and tries to be too much of a buddy to these guys, and he doesn't rule with that iron fist enough. And I'm hoping that if he gets another job, he learns that, because I think he's very basketball savvy, and I think people don't understand that about him, but he does know the game. He just has a way he wants to play. This team didn't have the talent to do that, and he didn't adjust to it. So because of that, I'm with you. I think he's gone. Even if the season doesn't resume, I think it would take a trip to the NBA Finals to keep him here. Or it would literally take Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid going to the front office and saying, you cannot fire him. Which I don't foresee happening. Not that they don't like him, I just don't think they're going to get involved to that level.
Yeah, I don't see that happening at all. But yeah, I fully agree, man. I just don't see the voice in the locker room. I think he's lost his players in many respects. There's been a lot of bad moments for Brett Brown, man. Just getting called out by players not knowing their roles, not knowing the plays, not knowing what they're supposed to be doing. It's been
some of it unwarranted. Some of it unwarranted. Glenn Robinson III, you've been here 2 games, and you don't know your plays because you can't hit a 3. That's why you know your plays. Because you sucked as soon as you got here. But that's neither here nor there.
All right. Before we wrap it up, I have some honorable mentions. I have November 30th, Ben Simmons stealing the W versus Indiana. He had 2 steals with 12 seconds remaining versus the Indiana Pacers. Gave the Sixers a W. That was really, really epic. Ben Simmons triple-double versus Houston. I don't think they won that game, but another triple-double. Phenomenal game by Ben. Furkan Korkmaz with the dunk of his life. He had a two-handed slam versus the Chicago Bulls on January 17th. He had 24 points and all that, but just a massive two-handed slam. And yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out. The game, the Kobe Bryant, the Kobe Bryant game where they did the whole memorial and all that kind of stuff. When Joel Embiid finished with 24 points, and the reports say it was like a turnaround or some sort of jump shot.
It was almost a Kobe fadeaway is what he was doing.
And he said Kobe in the shot.
Yeah. Yes.
Just awesome. Awesome. Rest in peace, man. That was
rest in peace, Mama. I don't believe he didn't know he had 24 points like he says. He damn well knew what he had. But yeah, that was, you know what, man, the NBA, what a cool, an unfortunate moment, but how unbelievable they came together to celebrate Kobe Bryant after that. And the Sixers, I thought, for him being a Philly kid, did just a tremendous job to recognize him that night. And with Joel doing what he did, it was really special.
Awesome. So let's wrap it up. So joining us today was Rob Langi. Follow his Madness podcast on YouTube, everywhere you find your podcasts, and follow him on Twitter at Philly_Madness. Any final thoughts, last comments, man? Thanks for joining.
2 final thoughts. One, because everyone makes this mistake, but I want Langi is the last name, but that's okay. Literally, I have not gone anywhere in my life and been called by my last name. So you're good there. Just wanted to make sure you know. Secondly, here's some tidbit on from a coaching standpoint. I've talked to some people, and no, I'm not saying that this would happen, but I am under the impression that the only team in the NBA that a certain coach from a certain university in Pennsylvania would leave is for the Philadelphia 76ers. It's the only team he talked to. It's the only team that can make him leave that Villanova University. Jay Wright. So if they do move on, because I've always said if you move on, I need to see Jay Wright's a guy that I would love. I don't want to see any retreads. Give me the Jay Wright guy because I think he's a guy that will demand respect and can coach NBA talent even though he's a college coach. So just keep that under your hat. We'll see what happens. But if I'm the Sixers and you're moving on, your first call has to be down to the main line over there. Try and get Jay to come up and coach these boys.
I'm a diehard Temple fan. Mm-hmm. I got to give respect, and he's one of the best coaches out there in basketball, and I would fully be down for that. So that kind of hurts me in my core, but it's the truth.
Yeah, man. So you never know. I mean, hey, I've always said I will be fully on board with a coaching hire of Jay Wright. And if that's true that this is the one team that he would leave Villanova for, that needs to be your first call once you move on from Brett. And if this is the last time we get to talk about Brett, hey, I thank Brett for going through what no other coach in the history of the NBA had to deal with and getting us back to a point where our home court became a major advantage for our team. Because listen, say what you will, but he had to coach through some of the worst teams I've ever seen, and now we're selling out the stadium again. It's probably time to move on, and that's okay.
Amen, brother. Amen, brother. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. This is the Party on Broad podcast for Rob, for myself. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome.
The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 Sixers win it! Wow! Oh man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles? Let me get a hell yeah!